Are we live? Yep, looks like we are one more time, yet again, live. Greetings, welcome, my followers of darkness, shadow scavengers, and villainy aficionados. Welcome, bienvenue to another live review of mine. I'm your host, Laura Shadows, like always, and here I am to do another live review about a movie that me as a fan and a lot of other viewers we've been waiting for ever since it was announced, and that is none other than, of course, Lord of the Rings: The War of the Rohirrim. Now, to kind of give you a little background, now when it comes to the Lord of the Rings world, or as I like to call it, the Middle Earth universe, I was always, the one thing that the things that usually interest me the most were like, Morgoth, Sauron, Mordor, the dwarfs, the Rings of Power, Gandalf and the other like wizards, Saruman, first age, second age, the fourth age, the first Great War, in the Battle of Mordor, or should I say the Last Alliance. Like there's a lot of things in the Middle Earth universe, let's put it that way, that I always found it interesting. And I will be honest, Rohan was like one of the least things that I always found interesting to explore. I mean, of course, I know about Helm Hammerhand. I know about this King of Rohan. That I know a little bit of history, behind it and everything. So overall, it was like always one of my least things for me that I love to explore when it comes to the Lord of the Rings. But one thing I can tell you, when I watched this movie, it totally changed my mind. This movie really, because even in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the Rohan part was never like the most interesting part for me, but this movie really got me interested more into the history of Rohan and all these houses, especially Helm Hammerhand. Oh my God, but the one thing I do have to admit, and having an anime Lord of the Rings movie is something that you don't see every day, and for me personally, my overall thoughts about this movie, because I mean, I wasn't like super excited. I would say I was more interested, but let me tell you, this movie blew my mind. For me personally, I'm seeing this movie as a great addition to the Lord of the Rings franchise. I really, really love this movie. Like from the characters, the voice casting, the story, the animation. Oh my God, it was so good, so good. Like really well done. From some of the references, the connections and everything. Like this movie, literally, like I said, blew my mind. But still, let's go one step at a time. Now before I go like into actual like other details, I just want to say like I still cannot believe that this movie, they got Kenji Kamiyama to direct this. I mean, I know the guy from Ultraman, from Blade Runner, the anime movie and the 3D TV series, and a few other projects. So I'm still really amazed they got him to do this. But as a director, I have to say, I mean, for Kenji Kamiyama, I mean, not me as a director, I mean for him, I have to say he did a wonderful job. And from what I've seen, for everything in this movie, I can definitely feel like if that he did a really big, deep research. He really did his homework with this one, and I was really pleased about it. Now, but anyway, let's go step by step. So, first and foremost, I want to start with the story. So, basically, the overall premise of the War of the Rohirrim is basically the story happens like almost 200 years ago, more precisely 183 years before the events of The Hobbit happen. Where basically you have Helm Hammerhand and his family, trying to protect their kingdom from the army of Dunlandings, I think they were called. I always had a problem, kind of like remembering the name. So that's basically the overall premise, and that's exactly basically what the movie was. From when it comes to story wise, basically Hammerhand and his family going up against this other army, and even though when you hear it just simply from the overall premise, you think okay, nothing special about it, but I will say this: it will trust me, this movie will trick you. Also, I say the premise of the movie will trick you because there's all sorts of deep shit in this movie, because it's not just simply about the story. What I really love about this movie, it's not simply about two armies, going at it. It is also the world building, the development of the characters, the action sequences, like like the twists and turns. I mean, there weren't too much, but like there was still really well done, really well executed for me. And like the relationship between the main character. Now, some people might find this like kind of like a problem, but like the main character in this one is not Helm Hammerhand. It is actually Hera, who is the daughter of Helm Hammerhand, and I think she's like an actual original character, because I don't from the Tolkien lore, I don't remember Hera Hammerhand actually being in the books or the Silmarillion and everything. So I think like Hera is like an actual original character in this one, and she's the one who kind of leads the movie forward. But don't worry, Helm Hammerhand, you're gonna see a lot of him in this movie. That's one thing I can promise you. And again, from the story wise, like from the world building to like basically exploring like different parts of Rohan, it was just simply amazing, absolutely amazing. Also, story wise, I have to say, like, it was really nothing complicated, really easy to follow when it comes to the overall story. Now, one of the other things also I want to also mention is the voice cast. The voice cast, I have to say, every single one of them that were part of this movie, I have to tell you, like every single one of them, from like Brian Cox, as Helm Hammerhand, to like the voice actors who did Hera. Also, the guy who did Wolf, I think his name is Luke Pasqualino. I think he's the guy who actually did Wolf. From the voice actors of her brothers, from like Owen, who is, I think she's the maid who is with Hera. Literally every single member of this voice cast was top notch in the characters. The way how the performances were done, it really, every single one of them did their best to bring those characters to life. But if I have to praise, I mean, like I said, everyone did their job, but for me, one of them that also really stood out for me when it comes to the overall voice performance, one of them is definitely Luke Pasqualino as Wolf, who is the leader of the Dunlendings and also the main villain of the War of the Rohirrim movie. I mean, the overall performance that he gave to this character, Wolf, who's, by the way, the one who's holding the torch, like in the middle, the one in black, that's Wolf. The way how he performed, in this movie through his voice, like the emotions that he gave from the rage, grief, sadness, anger, the thirst for revenge, like the frustration. Oh my God! Like Luke Pasqualino really surprised me, as Wolf. So he really made a big impression on me. Now the woman who voiced Hera, I think her name is Gaia Wise. I think she also did a pretty good job. Even though I will say that with her performance, I mean, I liked her performance, even when she kind of delivered with the emotions and everything. But sometimes I will admit she kind of felt a little bit too much stoic in my, for my taste, when it comes to Hera's character, But overall, I had no problem with her, whatsoever when it comes to her voice performance. But out of all the voice cast in this one, I will say this: the one for me who stood at the number one place, the one who really, was carrying this movie for me, all the way till the very end of the character's journey, and that is Brian Cox as Helm Hammerhand. Oh my God. His performance as Helm Hammerhand, oh my God, he was amazing. The bruteness, the badassery, the stoic moments, the rage moments, when he's going to action, when he screams, oh my God. Brian Cox, like, I mean, he's a really well, he is a really great actor. But his Helm Hammerhand, I have to tell you, sir, like, you did one hell of a performance as Helm Hammerhand. You made me love the character even more. The way how he brought him to life, oh my God, like, it is just absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Oh my God. Now, I will say this. Now, I'm one of the things I'm trying to do, since this is like the second day since it came out, I'm really trying to be out of the spoiler section, because, like, there are a lot of things here that are kind of like, I want to say spoiler heavy. They're kind of like mid spoiler ish heavy, in a way. But I will say this: there are certain two members of the voice cast in this movie that the one clue I will give you is that it has something to do with that. Scene, if you see it, like the hand with the fingernails holding a ring, there are certain two characters in this movie that especially has to do with that scene that they're voiced by two very familiar voices that that already were part of the Lord of the Rings for a long time. So if you see this movie and if you hear their voices, and if you are a Lord of the Rings fan, I think you're gonna recognize who they are. But I will say this: they were a really nice touch, for being part of this movie. They really were. But again, immediately when I heard their voices, I immediately recognized. But I will say again, very very nice touch. But overall, like I said, the voice cast for me did an astonishing job in this movie. They really did a phenomenal job, especially Brian Cox, like as Helm Hammerhand. Like he for me was like the number one. He was really great. Like I was really immersed in this character every single scene he was in. Oh my god. Which kind of brings me to the characters as well. Now, like I said, we have Helm Hammerhand, Wolf, Hera, Hera's brothers. We have Wolf. We have other members of the Dunlendings army. There are all sorts of characters in this one. Now, okay, when it comes to the characters list overall, there are not too many. Unlike for example the Lord of the Rings movies, but each and every one of them for me, I would say, did their part. Each and every one of them, really stood out. Really, every single one of them had their moments. But again, the ones that really have to praise as characters, again, Hera was great, but the ones that I was really into through the entire movie were Helm Hammerhand and Wolf Dunlending. Like those two for me stole the show throughout the entire movie. Again, for the second time, Hera's character, she was fine. She was interesting. Although I will say this, that I will mention this just for a brief moment. Like the type of character that Hera is, she kind of reminds me of the Hayao Miyazaki female characters. Those like strong females, like especially what was her name? Princess Nonoke or something, Mononoke or something, and also the other one, which was the I think it was like Nausicaa or something in the Valley of the Wind. Hera kind of reminds me of those two characters, in a way. But again, her character as well was executed, really well. Now, speaking of characters, as I mentioned before, there are some other characters that appear in this movie, and now, okay, there's only one I will say. There was only one I will mention because the news is already out there. That he was going to be in the movie now, which of course is Saruman the White. Okay, he appears in the movie, and by the way, do not expect Saruman to appear, almost all the time. He was only in one scene. And I already knew the news that Christopher Lee, they're gonna use some voice archives that they had from the previous movies that he did. And again, he did only one line, but hearing Christopher Lee as Saruman again, I felt a little bit of emotion. I really felt a little bit of emotion, and the way how he delivered post-mortemly, the voice of Saruman. Oh my God, it was wonderful. Again, one line, but they executed his character perfectly. We just one line, but again, done in a really good way. Now, one of the things, again, this movie basically, it goes all the way around. Basically, you have characters from the side of Rohan, you have characters from the Dunlendings, clan, and each and every one of them, like I said, all the characters for me personally were very interesting. None of them really left out. None of them was a waste of time or boring or not really well executed. No. Each and every one of them, for me personally, in this movie, each and every one of them had their knew their place. Each and every one of them, for me personally, were executed in a really, really good way. But again, for me, the number one best was Helm Hammerhand. I mean, from the Tolkien lore, I kind of knew how he died. how he went out, in the in the books basically, and but again, if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, then you already know how Helm Hammerhand kind of went out. But the way how they executed this in this movie is absolutely amazing. I really felt so many emotions when Helm Hammerhand had his moment, especially towards the end of his character. Oh my God, really, really well done. And then, of course, the best way, Brian Cox. I mean, his voice performance is just simply amazing. So overall, no problem with the characters for me. I felt like every single one of them were executed pretty well. No complaints about it. Like I said, every single one of them had their moments. Some cameo appearances also were really nice touch and all that. Now, one of the things I also want to talk about, and I'm going to try to be as less spoilerish as possible. Now, in this movie, there are all sorts of references and connections. Not just simply there are some connections, for example, from like certain places, from to the Hobbit movie, the Lord of the Rings movies, certain name drops as well. I'm not gonna say which ones, but the overall connectivity, I will say this: it's not too much. There is no like too much like connectivity in this movie. It's basically everything is centered around Rohan and basically their battle against the Dunlendings. But the overall, the way how they spread a little bit like connectivity, name droppings, and name of certain places and connections to like the future events, basically. Again, also really well done. And again, me being a Lord of the Rings fan, it was really kind of cool to kind of hear certain names and certain like places that I was like, oh, I was kind of like feeling like almost like fucking Leonardo DiCaprio when he was like, oh, I know that. So that was kind of cool. But again, do not expect. Oh, we already have a comment. Let me see. Oh, it comes from good old Ryan. I just got back from seeing this. I really enjoyed it. This was my first Lord of the Rings movie I have seen, and same for my partner who also really liked it. Oh, well, I mean, I'm really happy for you, Ryan, that you really enjoyed this movie, because like for me personally, I really had a blast with this movie. I really did, So I'm really happy for you and your friend, that you had a blast, enjoying this movie. I'm really happy for you, and then also pretty cool that this is actually like your first Lord of the Rings movie you saw in the theater. Pretty cool, pretty big honor. Now, one of the things I also want to talk about, besides the connectivity, because like I mentioned before, there are certain connections, references, and all that, but overall, do not expect them to be too many, because this is literally about Rohan, Helm Hammerhand, and the war between those two kingdoms, basically, or clans, if you prefer. Now, one of the things I do have to mention, and that is the animation. Oh my God. The animation, the anime style animation in this movie was just simply breathtaking. So clean, so well executed, colored. The movements of the characters, the facial expressions, the fight sequences. Oh my God, the fight sequences in this movie. They're not too many, but when they are in action, they're so breathtakingly beautiful to watch. When it comes to the overall fight sequences, oh my God, like everything from like even like when the creatures move, when they like the camera is going around, kind of like observing the world behind, like all around like Rohan and everything. The animation overall was really, really well done. But I will also mention that at times, especially the way how the characters move, it kind of also reminds me of it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Lord of the Rings anime movie from the 70s, because there are some certain parts that when you see some characters moving, especially in the background, you kind of feel like they sound very realistic, just like because like they move almost the same way like that movie from the 70s, which is kind of like fun, which is kind of like fun to see, But overall, again, animation, no complaints. I mean, I will be honest. There were some moments where you kind of think like, maybe they could have done something a little bit more in certain moments when it comes to animation-wise. But again, very nitpicky thing, because overall, 99% of the animation in this movie was just simply fantastic, really fantastic. Now, one of the other things that I also have forgot to mention here is that this is the soundtrack. Oh my God! I always said that one of the most powerful things about Lord of the Rings franchise, like if it comes to like the Hobbit or the Rings of Power or the Lord of the Rings, trilogy, uh, the one of the most powerful things that made those movies and that TV show what they are is the soundtrack. You know, and again, the soundtrack in this movie that I think like it was who was the composer? Stephen Gallagher. Gallagher, I think that's how I pronounce it. If I butchered it, I'm really sorry. But what Stephen Gallagher did with the soundtrack in this movie, oh my God, it was so well done. There was so like the music, it felt so Celtic a lot of times, and I love that. I always was a fan of the Celtic like music, and like this, again, this music in the background, certain like voices singing and the aura. Oh my God, like it really felt I went back to the Middle Earth. It really felt I returned back to the Middle Earth, and I'm rewatching Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies all over again. Like again. So again, soundtrack again, really, really fantastic. In this movie, no complaints about that. Really don't. Which kind of brings me to the final thoughts for this movie, which of course, again, Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, I wasn't disappointed at all. I mean, I've seen that the critics actually didn't quite like it. They kind of received mixed reviews. Although I've heard that the audience actually enjoyed it way more than the critics, which is a really great thing, because the most important thing in every single movie are not the critics, is what the audience think. So if the audience think is great, then absolutely, like that's a big positive. But overall, I really love this movie. I was really immersed into the world of Rohan, the exploration of like not just simply the overall history or like the family, but like even like different like houses and everything, especially like shit, I forgot the name. But basically, it was about there was this one crest basically that kind of shows, like there was kind of like this like Amazon like female warriors of Rohan who were defending it in the old wars and everything. And I really love that little history briefing in a way in the movie. I really love that. Which kind of also made me interested to hear more about it in a way. Kind of makes me be interested to hear more about it. But overall, again, no really big complaints. Like I said, if I have to say when it comes to nitpicky, also, I was really surprised that this movie is 2 hours and 14 minutes long, because it really went fast. I mean, really fast. Like you will fit. Yeah, trust me. The way how the movie progresses, it will make you feel like you're watching it like an hour and a half, or maybe even like an hour and 20 minutes, because it really went fast. Which again, no complaints about that. But so again, I'm still surprised it was like 2 hours and 14 minutes. But I will say this: there are certain moments that maybe you could have made the movie shorter. But again, just like the some bits and pieces of animation, that those are like really nitpicky things for me to kind of like complain about. Because like overall, I was as a Lord of the Rings fan, as a moviegoer in general, I was completely satisfied. I loved all the characters, the history of Rohan, the battle sequences, the soundtrack, the animation, the world building, some of the connectivity, some references, name droppings, and everything. Like I really, really was satisfied with this movie. I think like I think like for the most part, the Lord of the Rings fans, I think like they will enjoy watching this movie, The War of the Rohirrim, because the overall lore of Rohan and Hammerhand, I will say this: the director Kenji Kamiyama, I have to say, he really took this movie seriously, and the overall lore seriously, because the way how some execution of certain moments and certain like characters, the way how they were executed, it was just literally I was reading the Silmarillion, literally. And again, also one of the things I forgot to mention, I really love the overall origin of how Helm's Deep basically got their name and everything. I really like that, man. And again, that battle at Helm's Deep, it really brought me back to the Two Towers. When the Theoden of Rohan and was fighting against the orcs, or should I say the Uruk-hai, like it really brought me back. Oh my God, so many Lord of the Rings childhood memories. Oh my God. So overall, I really had a blast. I cannot wait to watch it again. this movie, so I personally think I will welcome this movie with open arms in the Lord of the Rings family franchise. Or should I say just in the Lord of the Rings family. So overall, my overall points when it comes to rating, I'm giving this movie a solid 9 out of 10. But I know there's going to be some people going to say, that's too much. Fuck you. That's my rating. If you want to do your own rating, then do your own review. But for me personally, like I said, love the movie. So I think this movie really deserves a solid 9 out of 10. It really does. Man, I really, really enjoyed this movie. So again, solid 9 out of 10. Completely satisfied as a Lord of the Rings fan and as a moviegoer. And with this, we have come to an end to another live review. I hope you guys enjoyed my review. You guys, when it comes to the overall ending of every video, you guys know the drill. Comment, like, subscribe, give me all personal thoughts. If you have seen the War That Are Here movie, give me all personal thoughts about the movie. What did you thought about it? What did you thought about the lore, about the certain characters, about the overall movie, how it was? Do you think it was worthy as being part of the Lord of the Rings franchise? Everything in the comment section down below. And until then, stay tuned for more live reviews in the future. And like always, Lord of Shadows, signing off. See you guys next time. And of course, in the solemn wise words of Beetlejuice, later, fuckers.